movie called again? Secret.
I almost called it The Crimes of Grindelwald, and I was like, no, that was the other one.
Listen. I keep thinking this movie is called Crimes of Grindelwald. Like, when I was typing it up, for every file, I was like, Crimes of Grindelwald, and later I'm like, no!
Because it literally feels like the same movie. It's just, I don't know, it's all a blur.
You're listening to Rotisserie Fiction, the podcast that roasts or raves about all your favorite media.
Hi everyone, I'm Priyam.
And I am Winnie, and today we're talking about Fantastic Beasts, The Secrets of Dumbledore. A little introduction for those who are not very familiar with the wizarding world. This is the third movie of a trilogy, the third Fantastic Beasts film, and it was just released a couple months ago.
Well, it was released theatrically, and then they just put it on Crave because they've been doing that with a lot of their movies. They did that with The Batman as well. Which is good, because I didn't want to pay to see this.
Aside from paying Crave. So this movie stars Eddie Redmayne, Jude Law, Ezra Miller, and most iconically we got Mads Mikkelsen for Grindelwald this movie, replacing Johnny Depp. And I guess that just leads into our first big question. How do we feel about Mads as Grindelwald? And there's one right answer is we love him. But let's be more elaborate on that answer.
Yeah, I mean, like, Johnny Depp drama aside, I think that this was good casting. I know there were a lot of people who were like, oh, this is unfair. And, like, regardless of how you feel about all of that, I personally think that Mads Mikkelsen, like, should have been the casting for Grindelwald right from the beginning.
Yeah, I liked both casting, but I think that Mads would have been good, like, even right from the beginning. They're different choices.
It's a very different portrayal.
Yeah, two different portrayals. I think both could have worked. But for this particular movie and the direction that it went between like Grindelwald and Dumbledore, I think the two of them, the two actors did very, very well.
Yeah, I think that there's a chemistry between Jude Law and Mads Mikkelsen in this movie that makes you buy into all of the history that's supposed to have gone down between those two characters, which I didn't necessarily feel in the second movie, even though I did think that Johnny Depp kind of pulled off that like supervillain persona pretty well. But I don't know if that's something that I like for Grindelwald, because I feel like that's more Voldemort's thing.
Oh, yes.
Right? I think that in this movie particularly, they go more in this direction of Grindelwald being like a corrupt politician. Mm-hmm. And I think Mads Mikkelsen pulls that off better because he seems like someone who you might actually consider voting for. Mm-hmm. Like for Wizard King. He's not explicitly evil when you just like look at him.
The Wizard King. I love how that just like popped out of nowhere. Like, oh yes, the Wizard King election is a thing now.
Apparently it was a thing in the book.
Oh.
Yeah.
We're fake fans. I am a fake fan.
I didn't know this until recently when I looked it up. Yeah, apparently there's this thing called, but it's not, like, we never actually see the Wizard King election.
Exactly.
In the book. I think they just mention it. It's called, like, Supreme Mugwump or something like that. That's, like, the ruler. Don't even ask. That's, like, the ruler of the entire wizarding world, which I didn't know that the wizards had, like, an emperor, but I guess they do.
Yeah.
So I think that's what this is supposed to be.
Other than, like, the very obvious actor change.
Yeah.
There are a lot of other characters that went missing, essentially, from this movie, which is supposed to be the conclusion of this trilogy.
Is it? I thought they were making 2 more.
Are they?
The plan was for there to be 5, wasn't it?
Wow, okay. Well, in this movie, we barely saw any of Tina, and Nagini is completely forgotten. Like, they kind of gave an explanation for Tina, like she took over Percival Graves' job.
Yes, at the American Ministry.
Yeah, and Nagini is just not there at all.
I have to assume that Nagini's permanently turned into a snake at this point and is like off living the snake life. So basically, the issue that a lot of people had with the Crimes of Grindelwald is that they added a bunch of random ass characters who added nothing to the plot, were completely irrelevant, and just served to pad out the screen time unnecessarily. In this movie, they actually got Steve Kloves back, who was the main screenwriter for the 8 actual Harry Potter films.
Okay.
So it was not J.K. Rowling just solo writing a screenplay anymore and doing whatever the heck she wanted. And that's why the screenplay in this movie is slightly more coherent than the second movie was. I thought the first one was okay. The second movie was a real mess, though. And a lot of people have attributed that to J.K. Rowling's inexperience as a screenwriter, though, you know, she's obviously a pretty good novelist. So they got Steve Kloves back, and I have to assume that they were like, oh, we realized that a lot of these characters from the second movie are unnecessary and are not adding anything to the plot, so we're gonna cut them. Mm-hmm. And that's why we're kind of back in this movie to just that core team that we had from the first film, minus Tina. We have, well, Queenie went to the villain's side, so she's hanging out with Grindelwald. Jacob and Newt are back together, and then Theseus, Newt's brother, is there. Mm-hmm. Lita Lestrange, played by Zoe Kravitz, died in the second movie, but there's a new witch named Lally, who's played by Jessica Williams, I believe.
Yeah.
And she is a professor at Ilvermorny, the American wizarding school. I think she's the charms professor.
So I think Lally basically replaces Tina.
Tina kind of filled the role of, like, competent witch in the first movie. And I guess
Yes.
the second one, too, even though she wasn't really in it that much. Mm-hmm. But now she's just completely gone. She has a cameo at the end. So, yes, like you're saying, Lally kind of fills that role. And she's cool. I do like her a lot. She basically does most of the stuff in this film.
Yeah. She was covering up Jacob.
Oh, literally. Like Lally's back hurts from carrying this operation. I feel like it could have just been her and Newt, and I don't even know why Jacob was there.
Yeah, like, okay, while I was watching the movie, I was like, okay, so they want Jacob to be there to throw off Grindelwald. But for what? Because Grindelwald never for once believed that Jacob was
A wizard?
Was a wizard. Yeah.
Right, but even if he did, what's the point? I didn't understand that. Unless I'm forgetting something.
No, like, he was like, oh, something unexpected that he won't see coming, and that might confuse him. But confuse him what?
Like, the confusing aspect is just that there's, like, an extra person there that he doesn't know?
Yeah, but it was just generally really confusing to me, whatever they were trying to do with Jacob. And I think it's just to put him into the plot. But it's just, it's very shoehorned in. It's very rough.
Yeah, because now that I'm thinking about it, I actually still don't understand why he was there. They send Lally to recruit him, and she stages this whole facade of being harassed by men on the street who turn out to just be, like, her friends who she recruited to do this. Mm-hmm. And it kind of lures Jacob out of his bakery because he tries to help her, and then she uses that to say, like, I'm actually a witch and I was sent here by Dumbledore to do whatever, and you need to come and help us in this fight against Grindelwald. Mm-hmm. I understand wanting Jacob back because Jacob's awesome. He's, like, still the best character in this trilogy.
Yes.
But, yeah, it's like I don't understand why having him there would confuse Grindelwald. Because does Grindelwald not know him? I feel like he was there.
Yeah, like, because of the cast change, like, throughout the 3 movies, we've got 3 different versions of Grindelwald. And I guess sometimes people would forget that he is the same person and he has actually experienced everything throughout the 3 movies. Mm-hmm. And maybe, oh, this guy was originally a muggle, and then turns out, oh, he's wielding a wand. Like, that might change something. I'm not sure.
But I feel like Grindelwald's smart enough to kind of know.
Yeah, and also, if Dumbledore knew him that well, why would he think that this would throw him off?
I don't know. And then, and as you were saying, it didn't, ultimately. Yeah. Like, he knew he knew Jacob wasn't a wizard.
Yeah, and, like, in that scene where Jacob confronts Grindelwald, and to other people it looked like he was trying to assassinate him, but we all know that it wasn't what he was trying to do. He didn't go there with the intention of trying to, like, kill him or do anything. Mm-hmm. So, and, like, none of that was planned. Lally didn't tell him to do that. So why was he there?
It's a really good question.
And overall, I just really miss the dynamic between Newt and Jacob. And originally, I think that's what really pulled the audience in, like, for the first movie.
I really liked the dynamic between the main 4 characters in the first movie.
Mm-hmm, for sure.
That was very much a selling point for me. But then, of course, Queenie randomly became evil, so she's kind of out of the group now. Tina, they wrote her out, and so it's kind of just Newt and Jacob and Newt don't hang out that much in this movie.
When I watch this movie, I kind of get a deja vu of watching Rise of Skywalker.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Where another screenwriter comes in to, like, salvage whatever happened in the last movie. And like you said, we're introduced these new characters, and now we don't really know what to do with them. And I feel that kind of happens to Theseus
because I love Theseus. That man is a yes in my book, but what the hell was he trying to do? And I just dislike that Dumbledore kind of sends him off in a wild goose chase. He's like, oh, yeah, just gotta trust me, and it will have a reason, blah, blah, blah. But it just completely messes up the original dynamic that they had. And what was Theseus doing there? He got caught immediately, got sent to jail, and then Newt has to, like, go rescue him. But that just kind of became their soul arc throughout the movie, it feels like Theseus gets caught, gets sent to jail, Newt saves him, they come back, and then they go to the final voting place.
Yes, I do feel like a lot of the characters didn't really have anything to do. And I agree, as much as I like Theseus, technically you could have cut him and it wouldn't have changed anything.
Yeah, and that just makes me feel really bad for Eddie Redmayne and, like, Newt as a character, because he was billed as the main character in the original first movie, but his screen time just got significantly cut down, and I don't really understand why they went from a Indiana Jones kind of movie to, like, a political thriller.
It's weird, isn't it? Well, it's because of the shift from it being a Fantastic Beasts story to being about the fight against Grindelwald.
Yeah, and it got to the point where they're working so hard to include these Fantastic Beasts into the movie.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like, even, like, the Qilin as a MacGuffin, they're trying to fill the quota of having a Fantastic Beast.
Oh, 100%. It's like that, the role that the Qilin plays in terms of detecting when someone is pure of heart could have been anything. It could have literally been an object. It could have been, like, a Mirror of Erised type thing, right? But they were like, no, it needs to be a beast because this is a Fantastic Beasts movie, damn it. It's still Fantastic Beasts. The titles are getting hilariously long where it's like Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. The Secrets of Dumbledore. And the two things are just completely unrelated.
They're two different stories from the beginning of the trilogy to the end of the trilogy, and they're trying to do a lot to connect back to Harry Potter, and I feel just for the sake of nostalgia, really.
The fact that every time we arrive back at Hogwarts, they start playing Hedwig's theme.
Yes.
As if that has anything to do with this trilogy.
Like, that is Hedwig's theme for a reason.
Yeah, that's literally the Harry Potter theme.
The thing is, I really enjoy the romance and angst that we got in this movie. Like, I really enjoy what Mads Mikkelsen and Jude Law tried to do. But I love the original version even more, where it's just Newt and co, instead of Dumbledore and his romance with Grindelwald.
I think the issue is, as you said, it's two completely different stories. So you can either have that, make it a political thriller about the fight against Grindelwald with this kind of angsty romantic subplot about, as a lot of people have said, Dumbledore and Grindelwald's divorce.
Yes.
Or you have sort of an action-adventure Indiana Jones type film about Newt and his friends finding fantastic beasts in interesting locations. I think there is something incompatible about trying to combine the two.
Yeah, because, I mean, you can just change the ending of Fantastic Beasts, and that could take a completely different direction.
Oh yeah, the only indication that Grindelwald has anything to do with anything in the first Fantastic Beasts is when they revealed that Percival Graves is actually Grindelwald, and they take off his glamour and he turns from Colin Farrell into Johnny Depp. That's literally the only indication of anything.
Yeah, I don't really buy that, honestly. Like, the tone shift in that ending and then leading to the second movie and then now this, it feels like they were trying to give us something and then giving us something else entirely.
Yeah, and I just wonder, what was the point of having it be Fantastic Beasts in the first place? Because, okay, I said that in the first movie there's no indication of Grindelwald being involved until the very end. That's not strictly true. The first movie does open up with a bunch of newspaper clippings reporting on Grindelwald's escape from prison, right?
Yes, yes.
That said, it's not inherently wrapped up into the plot, so I just wonder if they wanted to tell the story about Grindelwald, why not just do that and have the story start with Dumbledore? You could even go back and have flashbacks about when they were young, because, I mean, you know, Jamie Campbell Bower, they obviously got him back to play young Grindelwald in those few scenes in the Mirror of Erised. I just don't understand what the point of trying to combine those two stories were, except that they thought people wouldn't be interested in it if it didn't relate to something we knew from the 7 Harry Potter books.
Or unless you want to say like, oh, it's just another story where Dumbledore is kind of the person behind the scene, getting other people to do his bidding, that kind of thing. But I don't really see that Newt is being framed the same as Harry in this story.
The reason it works with Harry is because Harry is a prophesized hero. So the reason Dumbledore tries to manipulate him in that way is because Dumbledore has been playing like 60 chess with Voldemort for the past half a century or something, right? He's using Harry's status as this heroic boy who lived, chosen one figure to further his own goals in terms of defeating Voldemort. Newt doesn't really have any inherent connection to Grindelwald at all. He's kind of just a random guy.
He doesn't, but then Grindelwald kind of points out his connection with Dumbledore instead. So when Grindelwald was Percival Graves in the interrogation room, he was like, so what makes you so special to Dumbledore, right? So, maybe they're trying to play the reverse.
That the villain has a connection to Dumbledore instead of the kind of everyman hero?
I guess so.
Sure, but then what's the point of it being...
Having Newt.
of having Newt there? Aside from the fact that, yes, it is Dumbledore's MO to make other people do his dirty work for him.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess they had this whole explanation in the second movie where he says something about Newt doesn't seek power for its own sake. Like, he sees the good in things. He's, like, inherently curious about the world. So that's what makes him the correct person. But I don't know. It's just, like, the conflict against Grindelwald is not the same situation as the conflict against Voldemort, where Harry kind of already had the tools he needed to defeat Voldemort. And there's a reason it had to be him. Because... I mean, the whole point about Harry Potter is that the prophecy was kind of self-fulfilling in that the only reason it was Harry is because Voldemort chose Harry. It could have technically been, we learn, Neville, right?
Yeah.
So there isn't actually anything predestined that said it had to be Harry. As I said, it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy where Voldemort created the person who would defeat him. And that's not the case with Grindelwald. Grindelwald is literally just some guy who's trying to take over the world with politics. He's trying to run for Wizard King. And there isn't really anything that the heroes they've selected have in connection to him, which makes it compelling. Like, the only kind of emotionally compelling thing about this whole conflict is the fact that Grindelwald and Dumbledore used to be in love.
Yes.
Or, I guess are still in love. But then, why do I care about the other characters and their success in this fight?
And at the end of the movie, Newt was like, hey, if there's anything else that you want me to do, I am down. But for what, though? Like, what did you earn? What did you gain? What was this for other than, they stopped an evil politician? Like, why is this a story that has to be told through a magizoologist?
Yeah, I think it's worth noting that Newt doesn't really have a personal stake in this, nor do any of the characters. So I guess the movie is banking on us caring about the characters enough on their own terms that we want them to, survive and not be killed in the course of this mission. But from a narrative perspective, there isn't really anything compelling me to stick along for this ride, so to speak.
Definitely.
Especially because this is a prequel and, we know that Grindelwald is defeated.
I mean, at the end, the victory, the party that we see is like the wedding between Jacob and Queenie, right? But that plot line has been dragged on a lot. The conflict happens at the beginning of Crimes of Grindelwald and then ends at the end of Secrets of Dumbledore.
Yeah.
So I feel like that personal stake has been going on for so long that we're kind of exhausted by that point. We don't really feel that kind of success, that kind of like victory.
It doesn't help that I don't particularly care about their romance. It's not this moment of gratification for me when they are finally able to get married.
Yeah, like, I mean, that whole conflict in the second movie felt kind of forced anyway.
I think the issue was that everything would be solved if they just moved to England. Like, the entire conflict was that you can't get married in America because they have these segregation laws. Just move to England. Like, Jacob's a baker.
He can bake anywhere.
He can bake anywhere. I also think that Queenie's morality is never really addressed here, where her siding with Grindelwald in the second movie was such a big deal. Like, that's a fundamental socio-political difference that she has with most of the heroes in the story, right? Like, she legitimately agreed with Grindelwald's politics for, like, a significant portion of this trilogy.
Yeah, and she didn't really explain herself explicitly on why, other than that, oh, they could get married in his changed world.
Exactly. And then when he's defeated, it's like she just kind of magically decides that it's okay, actually. And also none of the heroes seem to give a crap that she betrayed them in this way and literally, like, joined a terrorist organization, pretty much. And then they just get married, and there's, like, never a moment where they kind of resolve that conflict.
I guess, like, a good comparison would be, like, what if Ginny became a Death Eater?
Yes, exactly. It's like, imagine Ginny became a Death Eater, and then Voldemort is defeated, and she just goes, oh, okay, never mind.
And then marries
like,
Harry.
And then marries Harry, and there's never a moment where they, like, address this and go, like, oh, you know, maybe we need to work some stuff out.
Yeah.
The best way to describe the movie is essentially you have this interpersonal conflict and political conflict going on between Dumbledore and Grindelwald, and then a bunch of side characters who are there for a reason.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the really insidious thing is that ultimately nothing that happens at the end of this movie, by the end of this movie, would really have changed if the side characters weren't there. I mean, the way it happened would be different because obviously the side characters did a lot in terms of the little subplots. But ultimately, the whole thing just came down to a duel between Dumbledore and Grindelwald. Dumbledore defeated Grindelwald. Even the situation with the Chillin Grindelwald is using is actually dead and is being puppeted by some kind of necromancy. And then the real living one that Newt had rescued determines that Dumbledore is pure of heart, which is ridiculous. Dumbledore is not pure of heart.
It is no. It is a big
all.
no.
But my favorite part about that is that the movie obviously also realizes that, okay, Dumbledore can't become Wizard King because that's not in the original. He was never Wizard King. So they also have the Chillin go and determine that the Brazilian candidate, like the woman who was actually running for Wizard King, is also pure of heart, and she gets elected. And it's like, what was the point of having Dumbledore get chosen then?
These movies always try to tell us that Dumbledore is like the epitome of justice and he is like this on the side of good.
He's very much not.
Yeah, he isn't. And this movie just heightens that kind of romanticization of Dumbledore. I don't like the idea of putting Dumbledore on such a pedestal just because of these plot points.
I do think that it's, especially in fandom spaces, the thing that really gets people's attention is these kind of dark, angsty, you know, quote unquote problematic relationships. And I think it's totally okay to do that with a gay romance. So I do like that the movie was willing to go there. And I think after so many years of them kind of beating around the bush with it, obviously in the books it was supposedly kind of implied, but not really. And then, you know, it was kind of confirmed off screen behind the scenes in an interview, and then they really kind of tiptoed around it for the first couple movies. This is the first movie where we sort of explicitly say, yes, I was in love with you.
Yeah.
And it's good. I think the two actors do a really good job of making it convincing.
I mean, I guess with the Chillin saying that he is pure of heart and then him rejecting Grindelwald, it just marks him as a martyr. Again, it's a story that's very black and white in the end, but we keep forgetting that Dumbledore is not the pure of heart character, nor has he ever been.
Yeah.
Especially as we see in Harry Potter, where he like literally raised Harry to be like lamb to the slaughter.
Oh yeah, the whole point of Dumbledore's character in Harry Potter is that Harry kind of grows up believing him to be this very idealized, wise old man figure, and we learn in the 7th book that that's not actually the case. That doesn't mean he's a bad person, but it does mean that he's a human being and he has dark aspects of his personality, and that's, again, that doesn't make him a villain, but it is something that he kind of has to answer for, and he kind of does. It's something that they discuss in that King's Cross scene in the 7th book when Harry kind of dies. this is something that's acknowledged, and I think it is sort of ridiculous that this movie tries to make us buy that Dumbledore is this really perfect hero when he's objectively not. Like, it's a major part of the original Harry Potter series that Dumbledore is not a perfect hero.
Yeah.
And that's good. That's okay. Like, that makes him a good character.
Yeah, it does. It makes him a very layered one. But it just, like, for the sake of the movie and painting, like, who is good and evil, it just piles on, like, Dumbledore is good and he is a martyr and he has sacrificed so much. And, like, you know, it goes up to the climax and Dumbledore doesn't go to Jacob and Queenie's wedding. Like, he just sits outside and watches in sadness and tears.
I made a joke about this where I was like, okay, either he wasn't invited to the wedding, which is insane, or he was invited and he chose not to go, which is also ridiculous. Why would you not go? So I was just trying to figure out, I'm like, why is he sadly sitting there? I mean, I know it's because they wanted that shot of him just walking alone down the street. Mm-hmm. They could have had him be at the wedding and then he, like, decides to leave early because he's, like, sad or something.
Yeah, that would make a lot more
that
sense.
would have been so tragic. Oh my God, that would have,
yeah.
like, twisted the knife.
Oh, jeez. Yeah.
Because literally my first thought, I was like, why didn't they invite Albus to the wedding? Like, they're so horrible. Why didn't they invite him to the wedding?
Oh, no. Oh, gosh, that is so freaking sad.
And I know that I guess if we were to ask someone with more authority than us about this, they would probably say, oh, well, he was invited, but he chose not to go. And then it's like, well, why didn't he choose to go? I think there was an attempt to really emphasize Dumbledore's isolation in this movie, all down to that scene where right before Grindelwald escapes, where he says, who will love you now? Mm-hmm. And the movie kind of reinforces that idea that, yes, Dumbledore is alone and isolated and no one will ever love him again. And I'm like, why? Like, just because one relationship ended tragically doesn't mean you have to be alone and miserable for the rest of your life.
Like, oh, I've lost my one true love.
Like, Dumbledore, you're Jude Law. You'll be fine.
The extreme angst over, oh, Dumbledore is never going to have anybody to love him again. It's not true because he is still surrounded by people that care about him.
Yeah, I mean, I hope so. If otherwise, they're bad people if they don't.
Yeah.
There is something to be said about the reading of this being a story of this guy who lost his great love in the form of Grindelwald, but then still chose to, as you were saying, kind of believe in the power of love and believe that it is more powerful than dark magic and sort of use that to defeat Voldemort in the future. Mm-hmm. That's interesting. But yeah, like we were saying, I think this movie focuses a lot on this idea that romantic love is the end-all be-all. Mm-hmm. When Harry Potter is saying the exact opposite, right? It's any kind of love. It's familial love. It's platonic love. It's love for your peers and just your society in general. Mm-hmm. You know, like in the 7th book, Harry choosing to die for all of these people, some of which he doesn't even know, is what saves them in the end, right?
Yeah.
So I just think that when you compare that to this movie saying that Dumbledore is alone and isolated because his relationship with Grindelwald didn't work out, I don't know if I love the implications of that.
So what was your idea with the love-vow-necklace-thing?
Yeah, so one thing that always confused me, maybe they did explain this and I'm just forgetting. When did they make this love-vow-necklace thing? If it was before the fight where Ariana died, they wouldn't have been able to fight each other. Right? But then why would they make it afterwards when they are already enemies at this point? Because in the second movie, Newt is like, well, why can't you just go kick Grindelwald's ass? And Dumbledore's like, I can't move against him. And in my head, I was like, oh, because he loves him and he doesn't want to fight his ex, right? Who he still has feelings for. But then the movie pulled a no homo and was like, no, it's because of this love vow necklace thing. That's why we can't fight.
Right.
And I was like, when did they make this love vow necklace thing? Because it makes no sense that they would have done it before or after.
Another technical issue that I really have a problem with is like the wand work regression.
God, yeah. Oh my God, let's talk about this.
Yeah, it's such a big waste of world building, in my opinion.
I agree.
There's no more verbal spells, and it's just hand waving. We don't really see the pattern in like the spells that they're using, and we don't see the intention that the character have for their opponent. And usually they're very informing of their characters, right? Like, I mean, there's a big running joke of Harry only knows Expelliarmus. And it was a big deal when he used that spell on Draco, like Sectum Sempra? Sempra?
Yeah, Sectum Sempra, yeah.
Yeah. So all of these specific usage of certain spells, they're very informative on these characters. And especially if there's a charms professor, I feel that it's just a great waste of opportunity to show what kind of character she is.
Yeah, what a good opportunity to like show us some interesting spells that we haven't seen before.
Yeah, and even previously, it's been established that no verbal spells at all is like a very hardcore thing. Like, you have to be really powerful to be able to achieve that. Like, just pure wand work only. But now everybody's like super powerful and they just can like wave their wand and do their thing.
Yeah, like I don't think we shouldn't underestimate how difficult that's said to be in the book, right? It's not just something that you learn how to do as an adult necessarily. You need to be very, very powerful to just do that on the reg.
Yeah.
I think that duel between Dumbledore and Voldemort in the 5th book is pretty much one of the few times in the original series that we see two characters just use entirely nonverbal magic. I don't think anyone says a single spell
Yeah.
during that duel. And that's Dumbledore and Voldemort, like literally the two most powerful wizards to ever exist. God, I hope they don't make 2 more movies.
I really don't see what other stories that could be told.
This was not the final duel between Dumbledore and Grindelwald.
Oh, because he's not captured yet.
No, so the final duel is supposed to happen in 1945, incidentally the year Tom Riddle graduates from Hogwarts.
So we get a cameo with Riddle.
Yeah, played by that dude from the After movies, probably.
Oh.
I probably just like placed a curse or something on Hollywood, and now it's actually gonna happen because I said it.
Knock on wood, no.
I just know I know it's gonna happen. If they make another 2 movies and go up until 1945, they're gonna have a Tom Riddle cameo, and they're gonna cast Hero Fiends Tiffin because he played him in the 6th film.
Dear.
And he's Rafe's nephew.
Oh.
So there's family resemblance.
No, just all in all, this movie is pretty disappointing. I mean, they kind of do have a conclusion. Even if they do have 2 other movies, I feel they won't really matter in the long run.
Yeah, I think they've put themselves in a decent position, at least, to say that, because what I read is that more movies are going to depend on how well this film does financially. So if it makes a lot of money, which I don't know how much money it made because I don't know how many people actually went to the theater to see it. Obviously, you and I literally just waited till it was on Crave. If it does do well financially and they make 2 more movies, okay, Godspeed. If they don't make 2 more movies, this is a fine conclusion. Like,
Yeah.
I really don't need to see what happens in 1945. Like, we know what happens. They have a fight. Dumbledore wins. He gets the Elder Wand. Grindelwald gets sent to Nurmengard.
Yeah, I just... a disappointment, but it's fine. It's okay, but it's just still a disappointment.
I know that we are kind of coming to an end of what we wanted to say, but I will just leave off with this before you can kind of have your final thoughts.
Yeah.
Which is that this movie is about a group of British people and some Americans teaming up with an old professor to defeat an Eastern European guy who's trying to take over the world. It's just the plot of Dracula.
Oh, no!
It's just the plot of Dracula.
It's Dracula!
It really is just the plot of Dracula.
Wow.
Yep.
This could have been 2 very, very good stories.
Yeah.
And it can be executed very well if they didn't try to push one story through another.
Yeah. So I guess it goes back to, like, make an anthology series.
Yeah, or like just make 2 miniseries.
Yeah. Or, like, standalone films. Something, you know? Like...
Yeah, just don't put them together. And I guess that's like a lesson for other filmmakers on famous properties. If you're gonna tell one story, just focus on that. You don't have to go through a different mouthpiece.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to bring in other characters and then have other elements just for the sake of nostalgia, because that's never going to work.
I agree.
Or even if you do make adaptations out of existing well-loved properties, do something new instead of pulling something from an ancient chest.
Yeah, that's very true.
That's my thoughts on that. Great disappointment.
Yep. Same.
And that is the depressing ending to our very first episode.
And now we will walk sadly off into the snow on the New York street.
Yes.
Thanks so much for listening, guys. See you in 2 weeks.
Bye. Rotisserie Fiction is brought to you by Yarnspinner Productions.
Follow us on Instagram at Yarnspinner Productions and email us at yarnspinnerproductions@gmail.com if you have any questions.
Until next time.